There's a natural tendency in us to get in there and want to create safety, change it. And it's almost like it's unethical to think in terms of when risk is occurring that you would talk about as something positive or strength. It seems to go contrary to our nature. And my belief is that if, for some kids, by going in and crowding, you damage the relationship because they don't know how to handle you that close. And they will start pushing you back, and they'll start throwing hand grenades at you. I call it hand grenades. You know, that's the swearing, the one-finger salute, concepts like that. But if they give you the one-finger salute, don't take it personally. It actually means you're number one in their lives. That's always my response to it. You think I'm an amazing person, and I'm going to spend time with you. Then the more you give me the one-finger salute, the more I know that I'm on track with you. Because really what is happening is that you're actually touching base with things they don't know how to handle. And that means you're on track. You just got to learn the art of how to get behind the behavior to that feeling of feeling I'm scared. I don't know what to do with you. When you say you actually like me, I've never really heard that a lot from some of the adults in my life. And I don't know what to do with that feeling. And so pushing back is a good sign. Matter of fact, you should always kind of have that tendency of push back, give safety, go again, push them back, or have them push you back a bit. It's always that push and shove for a lot of those kids who never had that developmental experience of safe adults in their lives. Don't crowd, okay, we've got that. Use the back door. I never tend to take on things initially head on. I always look for something behind, and then, so the young lad I worked with stealing cars, I didn't challenge him at the very beginning about don't steal cars, why are you doing that? I wanted to understand other things going on in his life, build on that. Guess what? It tends to look after those challenges. If you go to A to Z in a straight line, you'll fail every time. You've got to go to A, B, C, which are oftentimes dictated by what the child or the youth says, what's important to them, where they want to go. Because in going to A, B, and C, you build trust, you build respect, you build the fact that you value what they say, which then lays the basis for you to go to D and E, because they won't take a risk with you unless they know you value them or that you trust them. And decode the meaning of behavior. Behavior to me are signs, but they're not that doesn't determine who the person is. So just because kids are acting out a certain way, we tend to label that behavior. Don't ever allow the label to determine who the kids are. Some of the kids who have pushed back the hardest for me are my greatest successes. Because the energy they use to keep me at a distance, if you ever spin that the other way, it's amazing energy that goes forward. So when I go into schools and drug education programs, I ask the school, who's your biggest drug dealer? Because I'm going to make him my co-presenter. He's your expert in the school. He knows all the kids who are using drugs, what they use, where they get it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them my friend. And I'm going to cause an angst for them. Because they're going to have to make a decision at some point whether they want my friendship and how I meet their needs and how they're currently meeting their needs through that negative behavior. And almost without exception, kids will choose friendships where they feel valued over hurting other people. That's how you change these kids. And it's by making them part of the process, valuing them, bringing their strengths to it, and giving them an opportunity to find expression for it. Be authoritarian, authoritative, not authoritarian. Strength-based practice isn't warm and fuzzy. It is about setting boundaries and expectations, but there's a process to that. It's about establishing the relationship and trust first, not expecting behavior first. And model respect to the disrespectful. Many of these kids that we enter into mentoring relationships don't even know what respect is because they've never been taught it. They've never been role modeled it. And if you want to teach kids respect, show them what it means in the way that you respond to the way that they're challenging you. That's where they'll learn respect. And oftentimes that has to be repeated a number of times. That's why it needs time to grow, and it needs to be reflected upon. Enlist youth as colleagues. You need to make sure that when you're mentoring, that kids are part of the process. You're not dictating to them. You're not prescribing. That they're part of what you're agreeing upon, that they see it as something that they're adding to and they're part of the process. If you don't invite kids into that concept, then they'll just see it as something that you thought was important, and that may or may not be what they follow through on, because it may not be important to them. I like to touch kids in small ways, not big ways. And what I mean by touching is that when you give them that sense of, oh, I like who I am, and that's that feeling. You want to reinforce that continually in that relationship as you go forward and give seeds time to grow. I think if you're going to build something well, you need to build the right foundation. And that foundation has to be solid. And don't expect things if the foundation is fragile. So we move to that idea of facilitating. And we are, as I said, nurturing and mentoring is a purposeful thing. In our research at Resiliency, we work with this idea of protective factors in kids' lives. And we work around this idea that how kids think about themselves, but they need relationships around them. But it's not just relationships. It's relationships that know how to facilitate a mentoring or a strength-based influence. And so it's about believing in them. And the more they have, the more effective they are in navigating and negotiating life's challenges. And so you can have a lot of different relationships in a kid's lives, but if it's not about building their capacity and engaging them right, those relationships can work in the opposite direction. And so, again, it goes back to that idea that it does take a village. And so in our research, we saw family, peers, school, and community as 4 big areas that relationships are drawn from. But the challenge that we have is that our village is retarded. We work in silos, right? You know, I teach, I parent, I do social service. You know, we work on these islands and we have different philosophies sometimes, and we're not working together. And so I think kids are at a disadvantage when they hit one system and try to connect with another, and it's 2 different philosophies or there's different service plans. And so the other point I want to bring out to you is that don't assume all kids have the same story. In our research, we're seeing over and over again that kids come with different stories and different capacities. And so therefore, if you don't listen to the stories, you may be setting kids up for failure because you're having expectations of them that they don't even know how to respond to. And so I can go through a community or a program and actually tell you who those kids that are coming with a more impoverished profile is. They don't believe in themselves and they don't have relationships around them. That type of a kid is going to need a long-term mentor, somebody who knows how to work with other organizations because it needs to be collaborative in order to build that foundation to go forward. Then you've got kids who have a more vulnerable profile. They can have a combination of I am and I have. One may be fragile or weaker than the other, but you'll see unpredictable behavior. And you can actually have more formal mentoring programs that come into that. And then you have your resilient kids, and they really benefit from your broad interventions like Tribes program, the asset programs, and you know, general mentoring of teachers and community members. And so how you hear stories is going to determine sometimes the type of mentoring role you're going to have and what type of mentor skill set you need to bring to the picture. Because you'll set up a mentor who says, you know, I just want to go have fun, take the kid to a movie once in a while, and, you know, just going to, if you align him with an impoverished kid, you're going to find that that mentor is going to get challenged real quick and may not enjoy the experience because that's not the needs of that particular kid. He needs something very different, or she does. So the story will determine whether you need a strategic mentoring, a formal mentoring, or a more natural mentoring. And we haven't got time today to go into those categories, but you know, I just want you to walk away with the idea that the story is going to dictate the type of relationship that you want to bring into that child's life. And so we have this model where we listen to story, challenges, determine where they're at in their capacity and where they're going to go with that. But the thing that we're seeing in our research are these are the building blocks. These are the things that, in some sense, if you were going to have general goals of where you want to go, if embracing strength-based practice, having that framework to work from, these are the pegs you want to hang some of your hats on. I want kids to develop social connectedness. I want them to learn the art of what it means to have relationship. Who should they be bringing into their inner circle and who's on their outer circle? Managing ambiguity is that idea of life is stress. It's not a bed of roses. There's challenges. Do you know how to navigate and negotiate life's challenges and that it's okay sometimes to be stressed? Life's not black and white all the time. There's gray zones, and sometimes you have to navigate up through them. Adaptability is that, do I learn from my mistakes? Is it okay to make mistakes? I just like the fact that kids are making choices. And therefore, if they do make a mistake, it's my job to help them rewrite that experience and make different choices. Agency and responsibility. We need to help our kids develop that sense that if they belong to something, they have a role in it. How do they add to it? If I belong to a classroom at school, if I belong to a family, if I belong to an organization or community, what's my role in giving back? That it's not about always taking. It's also about giving back, and it's a two-way street. Moral directedness. I think we need to teach kids this concept that there are senses of right and wrong in society. And that if you do see bullying in the schoolyard, you just don't stand back and watch. You step into it because that's not what your school believes in. Your school believes in respecting kids, collaborating, supporting, looking after those. And that idea is that you're creating principle-driven individuals instead of situational-driven people. Principle-driven people are much more predictable because they go from a value system, no matter what the context is. Situational, that's unpredictable because depending on what it is, that's how kids will respond to it. Strength-based aptitude is that sense of hope and optimism. Do kids believe in themselves? And kids, for some of them, they don't believe in themselves because they don't have people believing in them. And then that emotional competence. Are kids aware of their feelings, know how to be respectful of themselves and the feelings of others? It's my belief that strength-based mentoring starts with building the capacity of kids, layering it with transformational relationships, which is that strength-based characteristics we talk about. Then when you add knowledge and skills, you got very predictable results. Kids will embrace proactive behaviors and risk becomes less of an option. The challenge we have in many of our programs is that we think that if we just add knowledge and skills to kids, they should be okay. And that's not right. Our research shows us that those programs are really hit and miss as to whether you're going to develop capacity, functional kids. It's interesting, Yale University, Harvard University, McGill University in their MBA program are now using the character competencies, 5 or 6 of what I was showing you, as a way to evaluate their student success. They already know that if you get to that level, you're a smart kid. You're going to be able to learn all the knowledge and skills of what it means to be a lawyer. But what they're now interested in and what companies and society is looking for is, are you going to be an ethical lawyer? Are you going to be a lawyer with character? Are you going to be somebody who's going to be a part of our fabric in positive ways? That's what we're needing to nurture. That's, to me, an end result of what a mentoring process should be building. So the idea is to collaboratively work with people and to create an ecology around kids which makes risk less of an option. Don't be focusing on minimizing risk only. It's about building the capacity so that if risk ever comes into the picture, kids will not choose that as a way to cope and meet their needs. So we've kind of just introduced a bunch of concepts. And the real challenge, I think, for us today, and I'm on that journey myself. I don't consider myself to be practicing strength-based 100% of the day. If I get it 70% of the time, I'm doing really well. Because there's times it catches you off guard because we tend to default back to the old ways that we used to think and the way that we were trained. And I need to continually learn the art of knowing how to step back and reflect on, am I asking the right questions? Am I engaging in a way that this person feels respected? Am I building their capacity because it's their story? And if it's their story and they're owning it and writing the next chapters, I'm just excited and watching back on where it's going to go, because I don't know where it's going to go. But in many cases now, I've got kids that I worked with 20 years ago coming back and showing me their families. And it's interesting how they don't talk about what I bought them or what I did. They talk about the fact that you believed in me. And that's the most common theme that I have, is that we built confidence that they could flourish because we respected them as individuals and said, you've got the ability to do amazing things. Mentoring is a conduit to doing that. We need to create a whole generation of kids that believe in themselves, know that they can take on any life circumstance, and that they will be better for it and those around them will be better for it. If we think that knowledge only is the way that we're going to be successful in life, we're going to be dead in the water. China has a student population of kids with an IQ of 140 and greater than our whole student population. So if you think smarts is the only way that we're going to move forward, we're not going to make it. What we need is a whole generation of kids that know how to believe in themselves, believe in others supporting them, and to think outside the box and be creative, and that challenges will actually open up new opportunities on how we can thrive in our society, not just survive. So thank you very much. And we're going to now kind of talk a little bit about some of the vignettes that were stored and maybe ways to talk about these principles. What does it actually mean and what we're going to do?